of genius. This is something that we will be deeply working on inside of the containers that Jasmine mentioned at the beginning of this call. So, finding your zone of genius and your team's zone of genius. What this does for your business is it creates precision. It allows each person ownership. It allows people to move with radical responsibility, right? And so we want to know, what are your high impact activities that come from your zone of genius, that create a result. And so I want to show you that velocity is, yes, it's a total mindset shift, and it's also a very strategic shift. There are numbers around this to support you. And so we asked you to 10x your goal. And really what you're doing is you're actually putting on a marketing mindset. So if you've done anything around marketing, if we have any marketing people in the room, you will have seen this, or if you've been in my world for a while, you'll likely have seen this before. So this is what we call the buyer's pyramid. And so I'm going to take you through a very low level description of what this actually is. But essentially what you can know in the marketing world is that about 30% of the people in your audience are definitely not interested. They're not even interested. Okay. The next 30%, they think they're not interested. If I was teaching a marketing class right now, I would go deeper on this. The next 30%, they're not even thinking about it. It's not even in their reality. They're over here swimming with dolphins, whatever. They're doing their own thing, right? Which, swimming with dolphins sounds fun. I think that came up for a reason. Okay, that's the next thing. Yeah, Jen. Okay, so the next 7% are open to buying. The next 1 to 3%, by the way, all of these could be 1 to 3, 1 to 7, right? But the next 1 to 3% are ready to buy right now. So if we look at these top two, right, the people who are open to buying and the people who are ready to buy right now, what does that equal? 10. It's 10%. Right? And so these are the two spaces where results happen quickly. Now, it's not to say that the rest of this is not important, but in a marketing mindset, as you're setting goals, if you have the ability to 10x it, if you can stretch your mind and you can start to see the steps, then doesn't it just make sense? Tell me in the chat, does this make sense? Putting these numbers together. When you want to reach a goal, it's the top 10% that matters. And so we want to actually times our goals by 10 in order to meet them. And so we're stretching. There's that quote, shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. That's sort of the velocity principle, right? Is we want to go further, we want to go higher, and that's what will actually allow us on a practical level to meet our objectives. Okay, so I'm gonna just check the chat real quick. And by the way, oops, I went to the next slide. That's okay. I said I was gonna respect your time, right? By the way, as you have questions pop up, if we miss them, we're going to come back to them tomorrow in our hot seat. So please pop any questions into the chat and we'll come back and look at those as well. Okay, so we have our high impact activities, we have our low impact activities. And so we want to release, again, about 20% of what you're doing are creating 80% of your results. And so conversely, 80% of what you're doing is only creating 20% of your results. So we have to shed that weight. So what activities are you currently doing that are not in your zone of genius? That are not creating an ROI for you? Look at your team, the who's in your corner. What are they doing that is not in their zone of genius? That's not creating an ROI for your company. And so when we talk about releasing, this is the most uncomfortable part. You don't have to release your whole life like I did a few years ago. I want to give you that permission slip right now. And when we're talking about business, there's really three ways to release. Number one is to let go of the activity entirely. And some good examples of things that can completely go are maybe constantly redoing your logo, constantly redoing your fonts, like spending forever in the website, right? Okay, maybe that's not your zone of genius. Let's hand that off. Okay. Um, or maybe on a simpler level, it's like, I'm going to stop binging Netflix because that's not actually feeding my mind and giving me white space to be the creative, the visionary that I am. Right. So there are activities that we can completely let go of entirely. Often those are the hardest ones. Secondly, you can create a system or an automation around it. This is something that we just worked on with one of our clients. She's releasing a part of her zone of genius to step further into her actual zone of genius. She's really great at sales. She's really great at sales. And yet her real zone of genius is putting on like big lunch and learns, big events where massive amounts of people are coming. So we want her there. That's where we want her, right? And so we created a system so that the sales can keep happening without her being there, right? So you can create a system or an automation around something that you're releasing. So this is how you scale, right? And lastly, you can outsource it. So, using that same example, there's actually some people that we are outsourcing that work to as well, right? So you can outsource it to the right who. So I want you to be thinking again, what are the activities that you're spending a lot of time on that are not creating an ROI? And also look at this very honestly, because the radical responsibility piece comes in here as well. If you say, as an example, that my hiring isn't going well or my posting isn't going well, like before you just completely release it, take a minute to look at, are you actually doing the things for it, right? Are you being consistent? Are you choosing to take the action? Or are you just kind of like throwing spaghetti at a wall, right? It's very hard to outsource something if we've just been throwing spaghetti at a wall. So couple things to look at here as you consider what needs to be released in order to meet these velocity goals of yours. So let's talk about outsourcing and finding the right who's. I feel very strongly and very passionate about this. People need people. That's like all we actually need. Relationships open and close doors for you. They help you move faster. And so no business, no matter if you're a solopreneur who's making 8 figures or you're a, large corporation or you're just getting started, nobody scales alone. We need people. And so the way that you scale this, especially as you're looking at outsourcing, is you scale with the right people who believe in your mission. They want to help carry it for you. They want to see the ripple effect of it. They care enough to build it alongside of you. And so what you're looking for, like the first piece that you're looking for as you consider outsourcing or as you consider, creating leaders of the people who are already inside of your sphere, is that alignment. And by the way, your vision, your big picture vision, the one that, you're like, at the end of my life, this is what I want to look back on. That has to be big enough to hold all of the who's visions, all the team members, the family, the collaborators. It has to be big enough to hold all of that. And here's why. Because if you really want to scale, if you really want to create freedom in your life, so that's what others want as well. And we know from research that when you are in your zone of genius, you have more freedom. And ultimately, it scales the company faster, no matter what. So your vision has to be big enough to hold theirs. It has to be clear enough to rally action. This one is something that we work on very closely with our clients around messaging and being able to be super clear about what you're speaking about. And this is a funny little story. When I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I had this massive vision. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this, right? And I hope a lot of you can relate to this because it was so big. It was so big that when I shared it with people, they were like, I'm a little bit scared for you, Meg. Like, actually, I'm really scared. I don't know if you should do that. And so the piece that was missing was that it wasn't grounded enough. Like I could communicate it quite clearly, but it wasn't grounded enough for people to actually be able to see it themselves. And so, while, I want to give you the biggest permission slip to like be that big, also, as you are leading a movement, as you are creating a team, there needs to be a groundedness to it where, oh, okay, it's a retreat center. Like we're building a retreat center. Now I get it. Okay, got it. So take some time to really consider your message. Okay. So 20% of our activities, our high impact activities, are from our zone of genius. So everything that you're doing, you want to lead with your zone of genius. And if you don't know what that is, I highly recommend having a conversation with one of us. But here's some questions that you can ask yourself. Again, I know I went over these before, but I want you to write these down. What do I love to do in my business? What do I love? What in my business doesn't feel like work? What are the things from those two that actually create an ROI? And the ROI doesn't have to be financial. I want to be really clear about that. Because if your zone of genius is, you know, it is the spreadsheets, right? Then there is an ROI, but it might not be something that's very clear and in your face. Okay. There's a ripple effect. So what actually creates an ROI from those two questions? That is your zone of genius. So what I know to be true, as an example for myself, when I lead groups and I allow the emotions to go up and down and the flow to really happen, that's my greatest ROI. That's my zone of genius. Okay, so what is your zone of genius? And you want to spend the majority of your time here while also giving yourself the white space, the rest. This is so important. Majority of your time is spent here because it's potent. It's where you're irreplaceable. No one can compete with you when you're in your zone of genius. Only you have your particular zone of genius. And that becomes your anchor into freedom. So again, I want you to spend some time with these questions so that you can get really clear on your zone of genius. And by the way, it's going to shift and change over time too. All right. So, we want this for our leaders, we want this for ourselves. And what I want you to really know is that you don't need to know how to do it all. In fact, you simply need a person that makes the how irrelevant. You need coaches, you need team members, partners, collaborators, like family. I know I mentioned that one already. Like all of these people find a spot in your company, in your team, in your life to support you. And so again, you really want to be looking for people who are self-led, that share your belief, they have belief in themselves, and that it's not just about skills. I see so many business owners putting, ads out there that say, I want somebody with like all these skills it's like everything. It's like I want someone who can do it all, right? And it's like, no, you actually want someone who has the main skill that you're looking for and is fully self-led, fully standing in their belief right alongside you in the mission. This equals exponential growth. So be really, really clear on who you are looking for. So now let's talk a little bit about the hiring process. This is something else that, I just walked a client through as well. So again, you are hiring vision carriers, mission leaders. There's a beautiful African proverb that you've likely heard me say before. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So again, we're hiring for alignment, not just skills, but communicating your mission is key. And by the way, there's like an internal branding structure that you have, that you alone have, that you can communicate in your interview process as well. And so, this story that I have about this client, it was like she was having a lot of retention issues with her employees because they were contractors and they saw how entrepreneurial her company was. By the way, if you're an entrepreneurial company, you might see this if you're not positioning yourself correctly from the start. And so we pulled back the covers and said, here's why the commission looks this way. Here's what I'm doing for you behind the scenes. Here's this, here's that, right? And so from that space, those people who came into her team, now they understood, they were already in on the mission, right? Now they understand how it's all working together. And they're the ones who are like growing the company for her now, right? So communicate these pieces, share your internal branding with them, ask the questions about their mission, their vision, their values. Look for those who are self-led and not just task takers. We don't need little worker bees. Well, we need integrators and implementers, yes, but we don't need just worker bees. We need people who are willing to push back and say, hey, I know you want to do this big, crazy thing, and I love that for you. But here's why I'm recommending this instead, right? We need a team who is willing to push back on us, partners who are willing to push back on us, right? Collaborators, coaches. You need people more than any other part of your business. Okay. So a couple of reflection questions for you. These are other pieces of your love work. Are you willing to lead and trust at that level? I mean, you really, like Jen said earlier, you really have to be willing to let go of the things that are not creating an ROI for you. You have to be willing to let go of the pieces of your business that are not your zone of genius. You have to be willing to let others take over in the places where you need to outsource. I want you to all find 3 high impact activities that you're doing currently in your business. And then I want you to add those into your daily structure. You might have to get creative on this, right? Do I lead a whole group of people every single day? Actually, yes, pretty much I do. Right? I named that as part of my zone of genius. How can you add that into your life on a very daily basis? And then looking at quarter 4, what can be released from quarter 4? What, looking at your goals and after having this conversation, what do you typically do in a quarter that actually doesn't make sense to meet this objective that you have? Right? I know I saw some people coming in. Okay. I was like, I wanted to let those people in. These are your reflection questions. Feel free to screenshot this slide, by the way, or write these down. I'll leave this up for just a few more seconds. And while you're screenshotting, feel free to pop us into your stories and tag us as well. Especially if you've had an aha moment or a takeaway today. Okay, without further ado, thank you for those of you who were able to stay. This day is it's so important for me. It's a velocity move for me. Jasmine was talking about earlier, you have this thing on your heart for so long, and it's like you don't take the action because you're still over here in the comfort space. And so to be 100% transparent with you, that's how it's been. That's how it's been for me for a few months now, but I really had this idea, this birthing process. It started about a year ago. And so I'm so thrilled to be introducing Beyond, which is our mastermind space. Like, I am so passionate about people, relationships, being the there being that is the source. That's the source where everything begins to move. And so this mastermind, there's so many pieces to it, which I'll go over. But what I want you to know is that there's a mission behind it. It's bringing all of the CEOs, the visionaries, those who are here to create massive impact, the world changers, all together in one room to support each other, to give to one another, and to be seen in your zone of genius.